Hi, fifth grade social studies teachers. My name is Kelly, and today I'm going to walk you through the Westward Expansion unit. This is the fifth unit for fifth grade, and it follows the Revolution and our Constitution. There are 12 lessons in the unit, and this should take anywhere between 20 and 27 days to complete. Our compelling question is, did the United States have the right to expand westward? Why or why not? There are 4 supporting questions. What was westward expansion? Why did people migrate west? How did the United States expand westward? And what effects did westward expansion have on the people already living on the land? This unit has quite a few inquiry standards, plus a behavioral science, civics, geography, and history standards. The unit is divided into 4 chapters, 1 for each supporting question, and you can see the number of lessons and days assigned for each one here. Chapter 1 is all about westward expansion, and we're using supporting question 1 of what was westward expansion. So students are going to explore this concept using maps and analyzing other resources. They will also learn about or review the Louisiana Purchase and the Lewis and Clark expedition. Students probably learned about these topics in 3rd grade, but will need a review. Students are also going to learn about another explorer named Zebulon Pike. There is a unit slideshow that you can use to help move through the unit. And lesson 1 begins with having students complete a WDIS, or a what do I see, of these different images. You could use it just on the slide, but it would probably work best to have copies of the 3 sources and have students move through and mark what they notice and perhaps generate some questions. After that activity is complete, work through the compelling question and pick out the disciplinary concepts and ideas associated with it. So thinking back to what each social scientist would want to find out in order to answer the compelling question. Then we move on to review the concept of right in terms of the review of rights and our theme for the year. And then we can figure out some of our westward expansion prior knowledge by using the 3 sources from the start of the lesson or by generating a class list of what students already know about westward expansion and moving west. Lesson 2, we go through supporting question 1, and then we use the westward expansion interactive map worksheet to continue to explore this concept. So here students can launch the map, and then we follow what the directions say. So geologic features, states and territories, show labels, and major cities. Students are going to want to write down what they notice about the map, figuring out what mountain range was within the borders in 1790 and what river made up the western border of the United States in 1790. Then in question 2, they try out the different decades at the top of the map and answer the questions based on the changes they see. After that's complete, we explore the concept of manifest destiny. We can use this map created by John Mellish in 1816 to explore the concept of manifest destiny. And the big thing that will be noted is the additional lines that are over here, denoting borders that were not necessarily part of the United States at that point in time. Then we have some information about manifest destiny, and this would be a good time to introduce the research, debate, or discussion project, depending on which format will be used for the summative. In lesson 3, we learn more about Lewis and Clark, and there are some lesson plans available from PBS Learning Media. The lesson plans are pretty heavy, so there's a suggested plan list of using the introduction activity from the plan or the video about Louisiana Purchase from Freedom Flicks. You watch the video, complete the graphic organizer, and discuss a couple of the discussion questions. Then I would move through and look at the painting, complete a WDIS, and explain what's actually happening, and then take a look at one entry from the journals. Clark's last one would be a good one, so that students can understand what type of information was recorded. Then you move on and have students learn about Zebulon Pike, who explored different regions of the Louisiana Territory than Lewis and Clark did. And there's a moment for reflection available for why we know much more about Lewis and Clark than we do about Pike. Chapter 2 lessons are about heading west and focus on supporting question 2, why did people migrate west? So we're going to look at their possible reasons for why they migrated, such as population changes, advancements in technology and transportation, big events like the Homestead Act and the Gold Rush, and Western trails. Then we're going to end with a mini research project over a Western trail. Lesson 4 is all about why people move. So we're going to look at push and pull factors. Push would be those who make someone want to leave the place they're currently in, and pull would be the factors that make someone want to go to a specific place. Famine would be a push. Good farmland would be a pull. Then we use the westward migration opportunities and dangers lesson plan. We do not want to do lesson 3 of this. Again, this is a pretty detailed lesson plan, so I would suggest following the suggested plans, which is to do all of lesson 1, perhaps in stations or rotations, do all of lesson 2 and use the online graphic organizer, completely skip lesson 3, and then at the end have students add to the debate graphic organizer. Lesson 5 is about population and advancements. And again, we're looking at some of the push-pull aspects of things, but we're going to focus on the population growth, the city growth, and the pros and cons of that. And then we're going to also consider the effects of transportation, such as the steamboat, canals, and railroads. Lesson 6 focuses on our events of the Homestead Act, Gold Rush, and there are a couple opportunities for connections with Iowa that you may or may not want to do based on the amount of time you have. Lesson 7, we focus on the Western trails, and we learn about some of the challenges that people faced on the trails. And then there's times for a mini research projects where students can work in small groups to research a trail from the list provided. They can use an interactive map to find out more information about each trail. They do that by coming down to the trail routes, and they can see the key, and then they click the checkbox so they can see where theirs is tracking. If there's time, there's an Oregon Trail game that students can play. This one is the older one that has some inaccuracies and downplays what happened to Native Americans. There's a newer one that has come out recently that may take a little bit more to access. Chapter 3 lessons are called Expanding the Country. So we're looking at how the United States expanded westward in terms of how the government gained land through different treaties, acts, and war. So lesson 8 is all about territorial acquisition. So again, we use that interactive map to see how the United States borders expanded over time and explain that US government had to find ways to gain territory legally. There is a territorial acquisitions map so that we can see how we gained aspects of the country. Now it does show us Alaska, Hawaii, and Puerto Rico, but we want to focus just on the mainland since that focuses on the timeline that we're talking about with Westward Expansion. Split the kids into small groups and have them research a specific territorial acquisition. There's a template available that students can use to keep it short and sweet. Lesson 9, we're focusing on Native American lands. And we're going to focus on whether or not the government gained territory in a way that was fair to everyone. So this is when we're going to learn about reservations and the Trail of Tears. And then we also have a Cherokee Resistance DBQ quest from iCivics to continue to explore this concept of whether or not the government took fair actions for gaining Native American land. Hint, the answer is no. Lesson 10, we look at Texas and Mexico, and here we find out about Texas Revolution and the Mexican-American War. You don't have to go too in-depth in these as the students will learn more about it in 8th grade, but it is important to understand that there was some fighting involved in order to gain these lands. In the last chapter of this unit, chapter 4, we focus on the effects of westward expansion. So we're looking at supporting question 4, what effects did westward expansion have on the people already living on the land? So we're going to learn about the various events related to westward expansion on Native American lands and what happened to the people. Then we're going to also compare the experience of Chinese workers on the Transcontinental Railroad with those of others. So lesson 11 is all about the effects for Native Americans. We have a few options of finding out about land ownership. We can use the conflict over Western land activities to understand how Native Americans and white settlers differed in their views of land ownership. Then we can take a look at this political cartoon on slide 44 and figure out how railroads affected Native Americans living in the West. And the big connection would be with the buffalo. Then we can also consider how the gold rush impacted native lands. Lesson 12, we focus on Chinese workers and the railroad. We learn about why people from China came to work on the railroad and how they were treated. And then we end the unit with the summative, which is the westward expansion debate. You can handle this various different ways. You can hold an actual debate with the full class, but it might work better to work in small groups and have students record their debate to be scored later. You can use Flip, formerly Flipgrid, for students to record their debates. And then also use the graphic organizer to help make sure that the debates are following a strong format. I hope this video is a helpful resource as you prepare to teach the Westward Expansion unit. Please be sure to reach out to your PLC leader, instructional coach, or curriculum facilitator if you have any questions or are in need of any additional support.